Thanks for tuning in, guys, to the Pest and Lawn Ginja, and this is What's Wrong With My Lawn? Now, the What's Wrong With My Lawn series was designed so regular homeowners like you can diagnose your lawn using my 5 easy steps of identifying color, pattern, water saturation, a debris test, and a pull test to figure out what's going on with your lawn. So today's little series is kind of fun. We are doing a collaboration with Mr. Tech with Brett.
Me.
He does the amazing home automations, but he's been having a home problem.
The worst.
His lawn is not growing. So a little bit of history that we have on this lawn. From my understanding, you moved in here about 2 years ago.
Yep.
Put the lawn in about a season and a half ago.
Yep.
And ever since, there's sections of it that just are not greening up no matter what you do.
Now, I've been doing these lawn assessments going on 20 years now, believe it or not. And the first thing I like to do is a general walkthrough on the lawn. Now, what I'm trying to do is establish if we have a broadcast pattern or if we have a bunch of random patterns that we need to diagnose individually. Now, in this lawn, you can tell by the front, the back, and the sides, we're pretty much just dealing with one, possibly two different things that deal with causation. The overall pattern is completely even across the board.
We have brown colors and a little bit of gray. The brown typically means it's just not getting enough water, and the gray typically means that it's either had a fungus or that it's been in a state of dying for quite some time.
Now that we've sorted out the colors and patterns, we're going to move on to the water saturation test. I like to use a soil probe. These AMS soil probes are my absolute favorite. Now, this is going to do a couple of things for us. Number one, it's going to show us the water levels in the soil, and it's also going to tell us what type of soil that we're dealing with.
Okay, so let's look at the soil probe, right? Now, a couple of things. We know that we're dealing with hard compact clay. Not a big deal. A lot of you guys think that's a bad thing. It holds a ton of water, and as of right now, we have a sufficient amount of water in here. Now, the other thing I'm looking at is this thatch layer. Check this pupper out. She's about almost 3/4 of an inch long, just traveling on the surface. Ideally, we want to see the thatch below the surface of the soil. Now, when it comes to a debris test, this one's a little bit tricky because we are springtime right now, which means a lot of this grass has just been dead by nature. But this is what I'm telling you, when you have a lot of rain, a lot of snow, it doesn't matter if you use a thatch rake or not. It's hard to get up, and we want to be seeing the soil surface. It's not uncommon for me to have a thatch rake. In this instance, I don't have it on me, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab your little crabby pincher hands, and we're just gonna be pinching a little bit out. And as you can see here, in one little area, we have just a ton of what would be called dead debris. A lot of you guys like to call this thatch, but this is just dead debris. Now, if we go in multiple sections of the yard, we're gonna find it's the exact same thing that's occurring everywhere. Now, if this grass were green, wouldn't have a problem with it. If I was folding it over as if you were getting into your scalp, also wouldn't, and I can see a sufficient amount of soil, no issues. Brett, there's a problem with your house. I don't know if you've seen this, but it has an incredible, majestic view. Are you seeing this?
What's up?
Let's go over this lawn.
What are we dealing with?
So overall, you have a broadcast pattern, meaning it's even across the board. Okay, so this tells us a couple of things. Number one, your sprinklers more than likely have even coverage.
Good.
That's where we go to the actual water saturation test, which I use the soil probe for.
Okay.
I put the soil probe in and I come out. Ideally, I want to see about a 5 to 6 inch soil sample.
Yeah.
Which we did, which also means watering is good.
Okay, good.
When it comes to the color and pattern, right? We've got some brown
Yeah.
spots, we've got some green spots. But the green spots are kind of speckled throughout.
Right.
Which means you've got, comment below if you think you know what it is. But basically it means that you've got happy dogs. Do you have a dog?
No, should we get a dog to even it out?
Yes, we may have to do that. But ideally, it just tells us that you are low on nitrogen.
Okay.
So the game plan chemically is we're going to fertilize at the high rate on the bag. which in our instance, I'm gonna have you just use a straight nitrogen. We already know it's in the soil here in Utah. It's springtime. We don't have a lot of microbial action, so we don't need to get a complete fertilizer just yet, unless you want to.
Okay.
So pretty simple. The straight nitrogen, usually just a little bit cheaper. That's the only reason why we go with that option.
Okay.
But ideally, we want to force some growth to get the color to even out. Now, once we move on to our brown spots, we're noticing all the brown spots are just kind of hazy, which brings us to the thatch test, meaning the debris test. We want to see soil surface, and in your instance, you get a solid F.
Okay.
Anywhere we go, we could not see the soil surface whatsoever. It is just dead grass. So then we move on to the soil probe test, which is my favorite test because this is going to tell us, one, if you have a sufficient amount of water, and number two, what the thatch layer looks like. Number one, great job on the watering.
Good.
You have a sufficient amount of water. We've got about 5 inches layered into the soil.
Okay.
It also tells us that you have a hard clay type soil.
And rocky.
Yes.
see
So
rock.
the absolute worst thing that you could do is to ever do is to let the soil dry out,
Okay.
because it's going to turn into a terracotta pot,
That's good to know.
and it's going to be difficult to get that water back into those layers.
Okay.
So we want sufficient amount of water per week, which this time of the year, honestly, it's next to nothing. It's about a 1/4 inch of water
Okay.
per week. And then as the temperatures come up, we're going to bump up the amount of water. But we've got one big fat problem, that is your thatch layer is ridiculously thick. And I find this a lot. I don't know if it's the way that they're growing the sod or what, but your thatch layer is 3/4 of an inch thick,
Okay.
which is also the reason why it's been browning out.
Is that also from my robotic lawnmower?
No.
Okay.
No.
Good to know.
Robotic lawnmower is pretty awesome because if you're running them about 5 days a week,
Yeah.
they mulch,
Yeah.
and it puts all that nutrient back into the soil in a way that it can actually decompose. And use it. So kind of awesome. So here's the game plan. And this is where things get a little tough. You've got a lot of work ahead of you.
Okay.
The primary causation for everything is the thatch layer, which you have a condition that I call gummy thatch, which means we have to rip through that significantly. So we're going to use the Ginja, dethatcher, and Scarifier. We have one by Ryobi that I'm lending you and one by Ginja. When we look at the Ryobi, it's basically a tiller that's going to go into the soil, and it's going to rip out all this thatch. Now the thatch is what we're concerned about because we need to control the levels of the thatch. So this is the thatch. The thatch layer is here. This isn't the best core to show you on, but I'll show you the one from the backyard. It's about this thick. This head broke off. So what we're doing is we're literally ripping through this to thin this out. That is the best thing that we could possibly do. Then we're going to use the dethatcher afterwards, and we're going to clean up all this out. Now, a lot of you guys have been watching my channel the last couple of years, and you've noticed that I've kind of gone backwards on what I normally recommend, which is running the dethatcher first and the Scarifier second. In this instance, when you have a ton of gummy thatch, the dethatcher is not going to pull all this up, which means that you have to do it this way. Now, here's my recommendation on the Scarifier. We're gonna have to run it 2 to 3 different directions, maybe even 4, just to rip the bejesus out of this thing. Recovery time is gonna be 4 to 6 weeks because we're really going to be stressing the lawn out. Now, I'm gonna recommend that Brett do the 4 to 6 passes in the first day. Then afterwards, we're going to dethatch it and get as much of the loose debris out. We'll probably have to go over it with the dethatcher somewhere between 2 and 4 times. Now, here's the interesting aspect. I'm going to ask Brett to run this dethatcher every single day for the next 4 days. Now, taking a step backwards, the process is gonna look like this. Day 1, we're gonna be fertilizing at 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, which commonly is somewhere between 3 and 5 pounds of product per 1,000 square feet, depending on the product that you buy, somewhere between a 17 and a 23 first number on the bag. Then we're going to water about 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch of water. 5 days later, then we're gonna run the Scarifier. We're gonna pass over the lawn 4 times. Then the same day, we're gonna be dethatching as many times as it takes to get the loose debris up. without getting a ton of organic live tissue. So then the next 4 days afterwards, we're gonna be running the dethatcher just to pull the loose debris out, and we're just gonna be doing our regular mowing routine. Then 6 weeks, this thing's gonna look like a money maker. Now, if Brett wants to hit the World Series Grand Slam, we could aerate the entire lawn, pull the plugs off of the lawn, then we're gonna grab some leveling sand and we are going to push the sand into the holes and smooth everything out. Now, the reason why I call this the Grand Slam is because he has heavy, compact clay soil. This is going to condition the soil to be much softer. It's going to allow the water to pass through and breathe. It almost acts like sugar for the lawn. It's just gonna pop. All right, Brett, with the amount of work that we have, you going for the home run or the Grand Slam right off the bat?
I think we'll go with the Grand Slam. I like that idea. Let's go for it.
Well, this is gonna be fun. We got a long time.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see what it looks like here in about 6 to 8 weeks. But if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit me up down in the comments down below. You know I'd love to help you guys out. Until next time, guys, the Pest and Lawn Ginja and Tech with Brett. We're slaying Brett's lawn.